Former President Trump confirmed a list of names floated to be on his vice presidential shortlist Tuesday during a town hall event in Greensville, South Carolina. Trump joined Fox News channel Laura Ingraham to discuss the Palmetto State's upcoming primary, which takes place Saturday. Ingraham asked the former president if the rumored names were in fact on his list of potential running mates. The list includes 3 former GOP candidates: Senator Tim Scott, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He also confirmed Representative Byron Donalds, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, and former Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who served in Congress as a Democrat but has since shifted to more conservative views, are in the running. Wow. Trump confirmed they are on his list, his short list, but did not provide a timeline for when he will announce his vice presidential pick. He said all of those people are good. They're all solid. Trump, who remains GOP frontrunner, explained he would like a running mate who can help him from the voters' standpoint, and said he wants someone who has common sense on issues such as the border, electric vehicles, and high interest rates. The former president continued specifically commending Scott, who was in the crowd at the town hall event, for his support. The South Carolina senator suspended his GOP primary bid in November after failing to earn enough support. He threw his endorsement behind Trump and has been campaigning for the former president the month since. A lot of people are talking about what gentleman, are talking about that gentleman right over there, Trump said when asked about a running mate, pointing to Scott, and he's been so great. He's been such a great advocate. I have to say this in a very positive way. Tim Scott, he has been much better for me than he was for himself, the former president continued. I watched his campaign, and he doesn't like talking about himself, but boy, does he talk about Trump. Trump faces off against the only remaining challenger, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, in the GOP primary Saturday. He is currently leading Haley 63.6% to 33.1%, according to polling averages from the Hill/Decision Desk headquarters. So yeah, Haley's going to get stomped on Saturday. That's not anything to be surprised by. It's nothing for me to try and. I'm not breaking news when I say that it's over for her. As far as there's no chance of her winning on Saturday. I think there's a higher chance of me winning the South Carolina Republican primary than there is of her. This list is really funny because I always thought Trump had this thing about disloyalty, right? So I figured Ramaswamy would have a good shot of being his running mate because Ramaswamy was one of the most ardent people for Trump, as far as, even though he was running against him, he was saying that he was the best president of the 21st century and just speaking very positively of this man that he was running against, to where I didn't think it made sense to run against someone but then also speak so positively or so well of them. Just seemed like a contradiction. But it appears it's paid off, because now he's apparently on his short list along with Scott and DeSantis, and I don't think he's going to pick any of the 3 of them personally, but that's just my position. I think that Ramaswamy's probably the most likely option, but that's not saying much because I don't see him picking Scott, who, I think his marriage that he's having is, I discussed before, one of the donors were concerned that he was single and they made a big deal out of it, so I think that was a ploy to try and get a higher chance of being Trump's running mate. That's not going to work out well for him. And DeSantis is going to be probably declining to even do that because he wants to be president himself and doesn't see the vice presidency as a way to effectively get there unless he's convinced that Trump's going to get convicted and thrown out. But anyways, so those 3 are whatever. Then we get to Byron Donalds. That guy, no reason. If you're going to pick somebody from Florida, actually, no. If you pick somebody from the House, it's going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene. And if you pick somebody from Florida, it's going to be DeSantis. There's nothing to him that would even make sense where you would pick him over any of the other people that are mentioned there. I would say Scott has a higher profile thanks to his presidential campaign. Same thing with Ramaswamy. Again, if you're talking about Florida politicians, DeSantis makes a lot more sense. Maybe you go to Donalds when you don't have DeSantis, but that still is kind of murky. Noem, I said before, I think that's the one out of this group that I think would be the one who he is most likely to select, because she's a governor. She's been an early supporter. Is very, very hard in the paint on sharing all of his positions. She really is one of the few pre-Trump GOP Republicans that saw what the party was turning into and found a way to covertly shift herself to being that thing. So, now you are the nativist, anti-doctor, governor, or rather, yeah, that she was for the time being. So I think she makes the most sense and is the most likely that he would select out of that group. I could be wrong, but I just think if he's looking for someone who will just follow him blindly over the hill, no one makes more sense than Kristi Noem. I believe that. Tulsi, oh boy, that was the big shock here because I've never even seen her and Trump in the same room together. um, I know there's that one point of the idea that she would be his Secretary of State, but you get the point that like here's a lady who ran as a pro single payer, pro free college, anti war, just wet dream for progressives back in 2020. Called out Harris for being calling herself the prosecutor president during the debate stage. And what does she do after her unsuccessful presidential campaign? She starts going on Fox News. She starts involving herself with pretty much every right-wing source and organization possible, speaking at CPAC and these other different conferences for conservatives. So, and of course, let's not forget, she went from endorsing Biden to now comparing him to a dictator and various other terms that are complete reversals. And it seems like all of this was done to keep herself relevant after not being able to run for a House seat again, and to get a better chance of getting some gig either on Fox News or potentially in this case as Trump's running mate. And of course, if I'm being objective, if I'm putting aside the fact that I feel betrayed by her, and not in the way, I'm not even talking about like the way that a lot of people say, like, Bernie sold out. It's like, Sanders never has abandoned his key positions as far as if you go up and ask him what are his positions, he'll still say the same stuff. Tulsi has completely shifted in almost every aspect other than being anti-war. And even with that, she has selective memory. But putting aside the betrayal I feel by her, would she make sense as a good running mate for Trump? I'm going to say yes. Again, ticking off the woman box, and then she's a veteran, so when she speaks about war, it's a lot more substantive than if, a regular person like myself talks about, someone who hasn't served, for example. But I don't, put it this way. I feel like as bad as a lot of these Republicans are for me, I can still say, you know what? You're not going to see DeSantis in 5 years calling himself why I left the Republican Party and this is why I support single pay. You're not going to see that. The Republicans, whether I like them or not, are pretty consistent when it comes to their general positions. Tulsi will just sway with the wind. She's like a less successful version of Mitt Romney at this point, honestly. Like, just I don't know what her positions are on anything besides being anti-war, and the rest of it seems to just sway with the wind with each possible year. But I think Trump probably would benefit from having her as a running mate, even if I think she's shifted and transformed into something pretty disturbing, but whatever. So he said that his top priorities for a running mate is someone that will help him from the voter standpoint and have common sense on the border, electric vehicles, and high interest rates. Now, I find that interesting because I can't really think of any instances where Trump has talked about electric vehicles. So maybe the running mate is someone that he has had private discussions with about this topic. This is an interesting and important news story because it's the first glance we've had at Trump specifically naming people. And it's also the first time I've seen him. I know Greg Gutfeld said something about Tulsi being Trump's running mate or possibly being a running mate. But this is the first time I've seen Trump ever directly acknowledge, yes, that's someone we're looking at or someone I'm considering. And I'm shocked. So this cycle gets crazier and crazier.